This is my presentation on project-based learning. Project-based learning challenges students to grow instead of just being regurgitator of facts. Imagining the possibilities. There are several things that you can do for project-based learning. One is to organize your project around an open-ended driving question or challenge. Instead of asking, is it raining less in California this decade than it was 2 decades ago, which is a very close-ended question. You could ask something more open-ended, such as, how does the continuing drought in California affect the agricultural industry? It integrates essential abstract academic content and skills into the project development. It requires inquiry to learn or create something new. This isn't just a research project. This isn't about writing a research paper. It's about creating something new, whether that is a play or a poem or a recycling program or whatever it is that the students are trying to achieve. It's, again, not just regurgitation of facts on paper. It requires critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, and communication skills. These are our 21st century skills, or the 4Cs. It also uses technology, whether it be a website or the internet or a podcast or a Chromecast like we're doing here. It allows students a voice and choice. It gives them input into what direction they want their learning to go. We may start off going in one direction and the students may see something else, and they'll be able to take that detour and go and get the learning a different way. And it incorporates feedback and revision. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of the project and finding out you didn't do it right to begin with, and then you don't have the chance to revise it. We also need to be able to provide feedback by having the students either give reports on how they're doing, or turn in rough drafts, or answer exit questions, but some way that we can get feedback as to what they're learning and they can get feedback from us. And it results in a presentation of the problem definition process and final project. This means that the students know in advance what are they expected to do at the end. If they're writing a play, are they expected to perform that play in front of their peers or in front of parents or in front of faculty? If they're writing an article, is that article going to be published in the school newspaper or maybe even the local newspaper? Again, we want their results in a presentation. There are strategies that we can use. You want to make sure that you're reviewing your projects. You want to overcome pitfalls, especially when it comes to team. Remember that while there may be no I in team, there is individualism and there's teamwork. And students have to do both. There's nothing worse than being on a team where one person or two people don't participate at all, but they're there to get the grade. So we need to make sure that we're cognizant of that. We need to design terrific projects to get started. They should share important features. The ideas come from everyday life. Here is one of the handouts from the BIE.org on a 7-phase model where you introduce the driving question, then you introduce a culminating challenge. This is where they're going to bring everything together. Again, it could be writing a poem or creating a play, creating some type of a device. They need to develop subject matter expertise. They need to do the culminating challenge. There needs to be a debriefing of the subject expert. There's response to the driving question, and then there's a summative assessment. And speaking of assessments, This is a really great, this is not speaking of assessments, this is an example of a project-based learning project wall. Where you put the driving question and the title of the project and stuff, and who the team members are and what their roles are. And each team would have one of these on one of those trifold science boards. They would list what kind of products that they're going to do. And they would have the different rubrics of how they're being assessed. Now, speaking of assessments, we need to make sure that we're making our assessments meaningful. We need to assess for learning, and we need an assessment of learning. Assessing for learning is your formative assessments. This is where you're going to do your exit questions. What one thing did you learn during this lecture or this lesson? If you had to do XYZ, what would that look like? Something like that, where you can get an idea of whether the students are gaining that knowledge that they need in order to make this project successful. And then, of course, we need to do an assessment of the learning. This is your summative assessments. These are going to be not only the final project, but maybe some type of a final quiz. But again, we want to make sure that we set out the standards of what it is they're being assessed on. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of a project and finding out you didn't do it right to begin with. Here's an example of a rubric that shows different things such as verifying and evaluates information, draws conclusions and makes appropriate applications, and justifies and supports decision strategies, findings, and solutions. And then it rates it from there's no demonstration absolutely whatsoever, all the way up to there's a very sophisticated demonstration. But again, the students then know what it is they're being judged on, what the criteria is for the success of their project. And here's a list of references. All of these are going to be available when I post this in the wiki because I'd like you to go to them. They are some really great things, especially the 8 basic steps of project-based learning to get you started. This really walks you through creating that driving question, what kind of products, what kind of assessments are they going to do, what kind of thinking and learning are they going to utilize. They're really great resources, so I really suggest you look at them. And that's the end. Thank you.